Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indian Debating League. And a few weeks back, I had an interview with the individuals from India going forward and representing the country in the World's University Debating Championship of 2023 in Vietnam. And ladies and gentlemen, out of all the teams, now India was in the ESL finals and quarterfinals for a lot of these events. They represented the country fabulously. And today we have two such teams and their members to share the experience with us and their learning. So without further ado, I'm adding them onto the stage. Where introductions are concerned, first we have Mahor and Harsith from the IIT-Bombay team. You all already know them. They were there in the previous interview. And as you know, they have pretty much similar achievements where debate is concerned, right? They have been part of several debates. Where Mahor is concerned, WUDC was his 45th debate tournament so far. And they both together have been the three-time Asian breaking speaker, the runner-up at both of India's largest debate competition from Nalsar and IIT-Bombay, and now the WUDC ESL finalists. Moving towards DTU, we have Sai and Angad. Where Sai is concerned, he has been the ESL quarter-finalist alongside Angad in the WUDC 2024 and the pre-quarter finalist at ABP 2022, the fourth open breaking team and double octo finalists at the UADC 2023. He has also been the open best speaker and finalist at the IIT Bombay debate last year. Where Angad is concerned, he has been the fifth best open speaker in the UADC 2023, a 10 times winner of the RML 2023, CNLU 2023, and Trivium 12, etc. He's also been the 9-time finalist of Nalsar, IIT Bombay, and MSRM. Ladies and gentlemen, give a large round of applause to these individuals who have debated at such high levels. Okay, formalities aside, I've given an interview too many times over here, and apart from all these achievements, I think the one thing which matters on your debating CV was this World Championships. And the question is, when it counted, when it really mattered, did these individuals, did these people go ahead and give their best shot and their results speak for themselves? One team reaching the finals and the other being in the quarterfinals. And ladies and gentlemen, my first question right off the bat is, guys, what was the WDC like? What was your experience overall? Starting with, let's go Sai.
Yeah, it was everything that I didn't expect. I was prepared for a lot of competitive debating and tricky motions, but what you never see coming is the amount of stress that you feel and how long every second feels between rounds, uh, and how like what you feel like basically waking up for every round, and what the marathon of going to like through those 9 rounds feels like. So I think that was very unexpected, and I don't think anything can prepare you for that. But I think all's well that ends well. So all in all, I had a brilliant experience. I learned from so many amazing debaters. We had some very great judges, and I think it's an experience of a lifetime. And it's something that I came out of as a better debater, as a more experienced person, and just more in touch with what it actually takes to succeed at these events and things like that.
Understood. And how about Harsith?
As I mentioned in the previous interview, something that brought me to the activity was the competitive nature and the competitive spirit. And I think what made the rounds very, very exciting was the fact that we faced really high quality teams. We had amazing judges who gave us great feedback, like Sai said. And I think just being able to push, like being forced to push your abilities is something that we had to do in almost every round. And that was fantastic. And in terms of the stress for me, like I was basically numb through the entire tournament because there was so much stress in my head. And then somehow through the help of like friends and like people I had around me, I was just able to take one round at a time. And as much as we are told about that, the real tournament is a completely different game. So I think these were like the two big things from Worlds this year.
Understood. And Angad?
So, in classic fashion, to oppose Sai and be contrary to his take, this tournament was actually everything I expected from it. The reason for that is very simple, right? Like, we come from a very decent society. We started like 3 years ago. So, this was a story day, like a story ending for us. This was like the perfect culmination of all we have worked hard for, of all the like 3 years we put into debating. So, from last year ABP to this year WDC, but like even goes further beyond that. 2021 Korea Worlds. Me and Sai, like we started, like we entered a random world championship without knowing what to expect of ourselves, but now we have worked so hard to go ahead and reach this spot. I think this was like the beautiful story that I wanted to get from it, right? And beyond the competitive nature, I think this tournament for me was more about the community building, was more about how I engage with people outside the debate room as well, how I get to know them as human beings beyond just debaters. That is equally as important to me as a competitive nature as what Harsith and Sai mentioned. So I think all in all, yeah, it was like a fairy tale ending to a story that we have started like about 3 years ago. So that's that's the value I take from this tournament.
Understood. That in classic debate fashion, as you said, opposes Sai, and I'd like to see his response if he has any. And Mahor?
Yeah, so I think there were two different factors to WDC. One was the tournament experience itself, and one was the part about going to another country, a vacation, a destination. I think the second part was the one that sort of kept us sane, kept us going through all of the stress. That even though all the 9 rounds were stressful, it felt like you're here for something big. It felt like you're here for something grand, and that sort of pumped the adrenaline and kept it going. And I think I mean, I tend to agree with stuff that others said about like it being very competitive and that being a thing that I really look forward to, like I mentioned in the last interview. So it was just a lot of days of somehow getting through debating while being pumped on adrenaline is what it was for me.
Understood. So in the two interviews, he went from competitive debating to I like vacations in Vietnam. And I think that's all that debating is about. Mohor has said it all, right? So the vacation, the community building, the competitive nature, all of it, points considered, the opposition to Sai, points considered, points given, ladies and gentlemen. So right off the bat, I see that everybody had a similar experience, yet the idea is just y'all were numb, right? If I ask you go through the rounds, I'm pretty sure y'all will be able to. But in those moments, as you go from the first debate to the third debate, you have lost perception of the world and you're just going to blabber for 7 minutes and hope something sticks on the wall, right? All right. So right at the bat, my next question is, could you all just tell me about the motions which came up and what your experiences were thinking about these motions and the arguments you'll develop? Like any favorite motions as such? Mahor?
I think, okay, the motions, I would say they were interesting, is one word to put it. And there were some, like all the debaters in common felt like there were some difficult motions with respect to them being, both sides being too similar to each other and the difference being too murky. But I guess that's a skill that we needed to prepare for Worlds. But I mean, there were some criticisms on the motion. But apart from that, my favorite motion in this Worlds was the semifinals motion that we debated, ESL semis, which went this house would ban defensive measures against hostile takeovers. And like it was corporate only, and it was about business, which is something that's not so common in debating. There's like finance and econ that comes into it, and that was just pure business strategy. So that was a really fun round to debate.
Understood. And Harsith?
I literally opened tabs when you said what motion was your favorite, and I was scrolling to find the ESL semifinals motion. But then the other motion that I found a lot of fun was round 6 motion, was this house supports centrist compacts. So it was not like I just think that's a round where we ended up doing really well in, and we just had amazing fun in prep and in the round. And I think that's one of my favorite motions just because of that.
Understood. And Sai?
I more or less agree with the observations and motions that Mahor and Harsith made. My personal favorite was the one on Japan, because that's exactly what debating is for me. Debating is supposed to reflect the contextual reality that we live in. It's supposed to discuss things which might have an impact on you going forward into the future. And it's something that I was able to prepare for, given the recent movements in that region. So I think seeing that motion just gave me a sense of, like this activity isn't that arbitrary. It is still in touch with reality and what happens around us. And I just think that IR is also one of the themes that I enjoy debating. So I found that pretty fun.
I feel like Sai went into this debate like it's a friend's birthday who you've given up hope on, right? Like he's useless, nothing's gonna happen in his life, but you know what? Happy birthday, happy 21, And he goes and he looks at him and he says, okay, maybe he's not lost all hope, looking at the fact that he's got a good cake at home, right? So his choices aren't that bad, maybe. And Angad?
Yeah, now this question is kind of difficult because now there's a counter connection with me and Sai because we both enjoyed the same motion, which was the Japan motion. I'm not going to get into the like why we like this motion. I'm just going to point out one thing, that we took a hard fourth in that round, and we still loved debating that motion because the case came out of nowhere, right? We thought that we'd either go for a clean first here. We took a hardest fourth we have ever taken. But I'm so proud of the fact that we enjoyed that round so much. All other debates were okay debates, but this was more of a expedition that we tried to do in this round.
What exactly
and it
was the
failed,
most-
but we were happy. This house supports the remilitarization of Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. And if I might ask, for Mohar and Harsith, I believe is the semi-finals, which is the favorite motion. If I might ask, the secret folder, what were your arguments like? In which side were you all really going for?
In the semifinals?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Mahor, do you want to take this?
You're the first speaker. Go for it.
Yeah, okay, fine. I'm just opening the motion again. 1 second. Yeah, so wait, we were closing government, and I just remember that our coach going into every single round at that point of time was like, look, your objective is not to win that round, it's to proceed to the next round, which means you need to be the top two team. So I think one thing that we heavily did in that round was focus a lot on strategy, figure out what are the weakest teams in the room and how exactly we can go ahead and take them down. But Mahor, do you remember the arguments we ran? Because I'm completely blanking out on that motion.
I think the basics. So I think our opening above us had taken all the arguments with respect to why hostile takeovers are bad and why these defensive measures are bad and why the CEOs act in a bad way and all of that stuff. So what we did is that both the op benches were pushing that this company will be better off, and where we engaged is we ran one simple argument of how even if the hostile takeover is not successful or it's successful, the company will be worse off. And through that, we knew that this is not sufficient to take over our opening, but it's different enough and we'll take cleanly over the op benches. So it was just a case that directly engages with both op benches, and that felt like that felt really good to execute because the people who were in opening government actually ended up winning. They were really good. And the fact that we recognized in that room that based on what's happened already, these two teams seem takeable and we executed that felt really good. And otherwise, I don't think we would have proceeded in the finals. So, yeah.
Understood. So is it so you feel like the engaging with both the open-ended, let's say, arguments really helped you over there, right? And going with more unique argument, of course, that because you have to extend an argument, right? And Sai and Angad, with your favorite motion about Japan, perhaps?
Sai, go for it.
Oh, we ran a simple case on what the precise threat Japan is trying to deal with by remilitarizing. There are movements happening in the South China Sea and along the Taiwanese Strait that hurt Japan's economic ambitions because there are a lot of shipping lanes and there are a lot of crucial maritime things that they have to deal with. So our case was just based on those things. Unfortunately, I think this was a classic example of why getting too much into the nitty-gritties of things can make you lose sight of the bigger picture. I think where we exactly faltered was fitting this case in a way in the debate that it can actually fulfill the technical constraints that debating puts on you. But yeah, that's more or less what we ran.
Understood. So your research was really high, but just fitting it into the burden that your side had for the debate was a bit of a, let's say, problem for you within those 15 minutes. Or perhaps you didn't realize this because you were like, hey, our research is really strong. We know our points and went into the debate, right? So you were blindsided by that part. Is that what it is?
I won't exactly say that we were blindsided. I think we relied too much. I think we just lost like touch with the fact that debating is not that based in contextual realities. After all, it's still a game of intellectual dishonesty. So yeah, I think bad liars. Yeah.
Ah, why am I getting disappointed in debate? Why is it that I am losing hope in this little term called debate as the interview proceeds? No, but seriously, guys, I understand that, and I can see the fact that firstly, y'all are really exhausted with the amount of debates that y'all did over the course of this, let's say, time, and I can see this because as y'all speak about it, it's more of like, yeah, intellectual dishonesty, what like liars. We've become liars, you know. it's it's sort of funny, but.
I mean,
but
if I can just pitch in here, I think that debating being a sport of intellectual dishonesty is something that's very interesting because in your professional life, whenever you leave college or even during college, you just need that to be a very effective skill. You need to be able to convince people. You need to, just get people to agree with you, even when all the facts might not be on your side. And I think that's a very important skill, to be honest. So for anybody watching,
that's actually called manipulation, but okay. Very rosy way of putting that.
No,
and trust me, you don't want to do that in corporate, bro.
No, but are you planning on taking up law? By any chance, Harsith?
No.
That's all because my mother, so I'm taking up law and my mom always looks at me sometimes and she says, you're either a lawyer or a liar, but right now you're both, right? So it works out, I assume. Either way, now I've understood your experience with your favorite motions and your experience with your motions. I'm just glad to say it's an X next to it, right? Because I think I'll want to move on from it, but it's fine. Now, I also want to ask you all, what are your best moments from this entire tour of Vietnam, let's say, right? When cricketers go abroad for one of their, let's say, tournaments, they call it the Tour of England, the Tour of Vietnam, let's say. What is your top moment? And let's start with Sai. And I see a smile on his face, or maybe he's not disappointed with the country at least.
Oh, so yeah, I think some parts of the country are tolerable, like good. I mean, like, uh,
He's out here tolerating countries, guys.
you can't blame me. I'm a vegetarian. I have huge dietary restrictions, but
We
yeah.
can
Anyway,
blame you. Go on.
yeah.
And we will blame you, Sai. No, I'm just messing. Yes, go on.
Yeah, there were a couple of parts which were really fun. I think debating wise, day three. So Angad and I usually make a very solid team, but we were making the rookiest of mistakes in the first 6 rounds. It was almost like we were teaching ourselves debating. It was that bad, if I were to put it bluntly. I think what I really liked was the last 3 rounds. We just said, whatever happens, happens. Let's not fuck up the basics. Let's stick to what we have been taught and let's go with what our brand of debating has been and what people know us for. Trusting our instincts, trusting our gut.
Yeah.
And I think that paid off. Last round it didn't, but we are still happy with what we did and the way we bounced back. I think that just made us feel confident in ourselves, regardless of what the outcome was. I remember like when the breaks were being announced, I was just looking somewhere randomly when they said DTU, and I didn't even realize like people are patting me as like, okay, that must mean I have broken. So I was just content with how day three had panned out. The trip was also fun. I had a lot of fun in this place called Hoi An. I think that was the highlight of the trip for all of us. We went to a place called Marble Mountains, and the funniest bit was, and the like most exciting bit was seeing Mahor break every law that the country probably had. So I think that's also a standout from the trip for me. Those were two key moments that I really had fun in.
Indian Debating League does not endorse or support any of these views. These views are all either way. The disclaimer will be in the description. I believe right off the bat that tells me that you're tolerating countries. You are you are admitting to crimes made by your friends. You need. I understand why you require this sport of intellectual dishonesty and why you can't be honest about certain things in life now. Harsith, you got me right there, right? And Angad, what about you?
Yeah, I think I resonate with what Sai said, or at least on the first part, the debating part of it.
Yeah.
So, like, just to add I don't know, a Bollywood flavor to the day three, we
Please do.
actually felt like the Chak De India final moments, right? India versus Australia, that hockey match. We were like अपनी जिंदगी की best debating कर लेंगे. इसके बाद like we don't know, it happens, it's in God's hands now. So yeah, day three was very satisfying in terms of the sport, in terms of the activity. Results did not matter at that point. The breaks did not matter at that point, and that was so fulfilling. But the most fun that I had, and me being like a party person with no restrictions as Sai has, the most fun time that I had in Vietnam was actually after the debate, like I think a week after the debate. And this was like 2 nights ago, right, Harshit? When me and Harshit and Sai, we just like were on the streets of Hanoi at 5 a.m. in the morning, till 5 a.m. in the morning, hopping from one club to another. I will not mention certain specificities because of the restrictions, but yeah, it was too much fun, and yeah, I don't remember half that night, so I think that should give you an answer for what went down.
So that's my endorsement. If you want to debate, if you're a young debater looking at worlds, no restrictions, partying is all I'm saying. Right? You get to party, nobody nagging you about it. And Harsith and Angad, they'll recommend some good places in Vietnam if you ever go for a Vietnam Worlds in your lifetime. Yes, let's go to Harsith now.
Just in terms of debating, I think the ESL quarters, that day was a very interesting day for us because I think that was the most tensed I was after any round. And in reality, we needn't have been tense, is what we learned later on. But like those 1 hour, at least when we were waiting for results, like a range of emotions went through my head that day. In terms of fun moments, like it's both of what Sai Angad mentioned too. Like we did the trip together, we have a lot of fun moments. Like, but something I personally liked was a lot of adventures. And one thing we all ended up doing was we found a boat at 7 p.m. in the night, and it was in a river that had a forest and it was completely dark. And then we just convinced the boat guy to let us row the boat, and it was like 2 people in a boat, and we just rowed it ourselves for like 45 minutes in pitch black. And it was extremely hilarious to see Sai struggle with doing that. But we had a lot of fun there. And I also went, one day when I was solo backpacking, I just randomly ended up climbing a cliff by the sea for a kilometer with an Italian traveler. So adventures are something that you have a lot of freedom to do when you travel alone in worlds. And Panama next year is a place that's filled with a lot of outdoorsy things to do if you're someone that's in for that kind of thing.
He's had his Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara experience. He's had his Ye Jawani Hai Diwani. He's looking at you and saying, join my Oceans 12 team right now. I don't know what's happening. They're marketing this really well. And Mahor?
I think, okay, starting with like the
How
fun
was the
part,
flight
non-debate wise, come again?
How was the early flight? After hearing
I
this-
mean, I was there for like half of these, but I wasn't there for like the other half where they went partying in Hanoi. Like I was there in Hoi An, so I had like half the fun, let's say. So all the parts that they mentioned about like going to the Marble Mountain and all that was probably like my favorite memories. Like I think one thing that I'll remember from the fun part of the trip was me, Harsith, and Sai on like the Marble Mountains place. We were climbing, like we were completely exhausted. I was in slippers, Harsith was in sandals, and we were completely exhausted. Yet we were trekking in every direction we could see any open trek path. Like we were like, okay, there's a cave, there's a direction, let's try and go there. And we reached the highest point. We reached the deepest, like weirdest small cave and all of that. That was really really fun. And like that kind of adventure was very very nice. It was very stressless. Like there's no deadline, there's nothing, we're just chilling. That was really nice. Debate wise, I think the best single moment for me was when ESL semis results were being announced. We were in closing government and they announced opening government first, and then for some reason the ads took a very very huge pause before announcing the second team. And the range of emotions from like speculation to anxiety to then when they announced closing government, like I started jumping and yelling, and then I broke down in tears somewhere after that. That was like the best moment. That felt like a lot of things that we worked for suddenly came true. So that was like a very very
No, I get why it's called a break now. It broke you completely inside, right? So they were just going by the definitional sense of things. The other thing I noticed, and it's really funny looking at it from an outsider's perspective, because the next generation of debate is, again, they have their eyes on you right now. They're watching this, trying to understand what they can do for worlds. And all they're saying is, Vietnam was amazing. And, the experience was so good. I went out partying. But then the debate happened. And the debate and the whole vibrations of the interview changes right there. So, guys, if debate is not for the happy, I don't know. No, I'm just messing, right? So, I also want to know, going around the table once again, if you all can quickly tell me. Now, I know Mohar and Harsith's expectations of the debate. I want to know what the reality was in the least amount of words I can tell me, because, as you said, it's not going to help the individuals out there anyway. Right? No matter how many times you hear it, you have to go, you have to experience it to know the anxiety, the adrenaline, which will really be necessary. And the same with Sai. I would like you all to perhaps open up, Angad and Sai, about your expectations as well and the reality. Starting with IIT Bombay.
I mean, if I can just take this up, we were gunning for an open break and wanted to sort of reach the quarters, is what we also mentioned in the previous video. We missed the open break by a couple of points. So it was very close, but we were also happy with what we were able to achieve in the SL category. Making the finals was a big deal for us. Yeah, that's basically it in terms of expectations and what happened.
How about Mahor?
I think with respect to goals, that was the expectations. I think we also said some other things with respect to how the comp will be. I think we expected a comp that's extremely competitive and cutthroat, and we knew that there is some amount of randomness in the game. And I think that we went there and dealt with it as well as we could. Like, we tried to be prepared for it. So I think that matched sort of like what our expectations were.
Understood. And how about the DTU team? Anybody can take this up pretty much.
So yeah, I think what they have mentioned, what IIT Bombay has mentioned, is like almost similar to, and applies to all teams, like more or less, because everyone wants to get that break, get that position, reach the top spot, right? Because that's an inherent competitiveness. If you want to debate for so long, if you're actually coming to worlds, like spending so much money going there to a new country, you obviously have those expectations out of yourselves, at least the competitive nature ones, right? And I'll let Sai elaborate on this a little more. But the one thing I want to pitch in before he does that is that the expectation that I had from my team was actually to see how much we back ourselves and back each other within the debate room. How much can we trust our partners? Because it's 9 rounds long, right? It's not a T20. It's like a proper test match that you play for 9 rounds. So it's a long duration, and there are obviously moments where you end up disagreeing at some stage. You might you're not perfect partners. Sometimes things do end up in disagreements. So how much would you still back your partner, even when you disagree with them? Even when you have 15 minutes of prep time, you have to sort out those disagreements in those 15 minutes of prep time. So even though we are me and Sai have been debating for too long now, and we are too much in sync, disagreements and managing those things and managing each other's expectations, pumping each other up when you give like a not the best speech that you wanted to give, and also backing each other up in rounds when you have taken like consecutive fourths. I think those kind of expectations are something that I wanted to see how much you can explore that, and that is what we are able to like come out swinging at the end of this. So I think on that aspect, I think the team dynamics solidified too strongly for us throughout this tournament, and that's what I'm so proud of. Like the way we have held each other's backs and like supported each other is the thing that I expected out of us, and my expectations were like met and probably exceeded by a huge margin. But yes, I can explain more about the debating stuff. I shut that part out at some point.
And Sai, please tell me about your expectations of intellectual honesty and how it was completely destroyed and broken apart, and you did not like it.
No. I think that facade was broken long ago, so Worlds did not disappoint me in that aspect. But yeah, of course, like as everyone said, you should have expectations to do well, and you should push yourself in every aspect possible. Of course, to a healthy extent. We couldn't achieve what we set out to, but I'm very happy with one realization. I just think that this game is a race. It's a 100-meter race, and some people had a 10-meter head start because they went to world schools, because they had one of the most like amazing coaches in the world, because their insta is loaded. And this game is all about making sure that you reach the same starting point, and then you use your brute skill. I still firmly believe that everyone and a lot of people in India have the skill to make like it deep, even in the open rounds in world. And I'm just happy that I came back with that realization. It's no longer a barrier that's impossible to break in my head.
Virus has said this from day one, right? Life is race, and so on and so forth is broken under. But I definitely agree with you. India has what it takes. We just don't have, let's say, as many resources as the other countries and as the other universities, but we're getting there. The fact that everybody on this call has broken, right? Which in itself, broken. Guys, the people who don't debate, I mean it not literally, right? But they've broken into the, let's say, out rounds, and they've shown that we have what it takes. And as Mahor and Harsith said, they were very close to breaking into the open rounds as well, which already says we're almost there, guys. It's just one push, one more year of, let's say, training. And I would recommend, even though they have not given me the permission, just get in touch with these guys if you can, right? Ram their DMs and really get to know what the experience is like, even off the charts, so that y'all can prepare really well. I agree with Sai over there. Indians have what it takes. Chak de India, 70 minute, all of those I was saying biological lines for some reason. All those Bollywood lines, just use them really well and motivate yourselves. Okay. I also have certain questions about, let's say, when you all started out debating, did you really expect to come to this position? Did you all expect to be in the WUDC ESL finals or quarterfinals, really? Starting with Sai.
No, I just came to the debate. Actually, it was Angad who was heading that session. I just came because online college was very boring and I had stage anxiety. I think that's the beautiful part of debating, right? You expect, when you enter, you expect so little, but it ends up giving you so much. Of course, it consumed you whole in the process, but I didn't have many expectations. I just wanted to be a more confident person and a confident speaker. And everything else that happened is just, I think it's a blessing. So that's how I see it.
I think that answer for me was because it started off with debating gives you so much, but then it consumes you completely. But it has been the roller coaster side. And Angad, what about you?
Yeah, I think that roller coaster is what like keeps you attached to debating for so long. It's like the highs are never the highest, the lows are never the lowest. Like, and the people are always there to help you out and put you like push you and even continue to support you. So yeah, same as Sai, I did not expect to ever like even like participate in a world championship, let alone breaking at a world championship, right? And I think this is the beauty of like Indian debating. I think all of us have so much hunger that at least in our circuits, respective circuits, that we just want to be the best. We want to go ahead and like just every nascent sock wants to be the big sock. So everyone wants to go ahead and do that, and I think that support is something that I think the circuit at least gives to each other. At least some societies that we are very close to. So that is something that's really good. And those expectations that you see other societies performing well, then you also want to push yourself. And that kind of like motivates each other to go ahead and keep on doing these activities. So yeah, I did not expect, but yeah, it's a blessing. And yeah, we are obviously like so pumped to help other societies as well, and so pumped to help each other again, like push each other and break more glass ceilings in the future.
Yes, and Harsith?
So obviously we can't expect which position we end up in like the World Championships. There's a lot of randomness. At least when I started the activity, I wanted to participate in at least one or two, if possible, World Championships, and hope to do really well. But what kept me going was that as much as rounds are about winning and losing, there are specific skills that you learn from debating, and I think just me having that personal satisfaction that I'm able to deliver arguments very convincingly, say, frame a debate in like the perfect way in the first couple of minutes, were the kind of skills I wanted to perfect. And I still think there's much more to go on that journey, but like the milestone that we've reached for now.
Understood. And Mahor?
So I would say with respect to expectations or goals, I'm in general an extremely optimistically ambitious person. Like I just set my goals insanely high so that like I at least have something to work for. So I always wanted to, since I started debating, sort of break the India record for worlds. And did I think it would happen? The answer was no. Like while I set my goals, so I wasn't really like, it was just a dream. It was not something that we felt we would reach. I mean, we didn't make the open break here also, but like if someone told me when I started debating that the second half of 2023 would go the way it's gone, then I wouldn't believe them. While it would be my dream, it's been very, very nice, and it's been like a reward for a lot of hard work. And what kept me going, honestly, is I think all four of us are engineers who are debaters, and I don't know if everyone will agree, but debating becomes a very, very, very interesting part of our personality as an engineer, because it's very different from what other people are doing within our fields or how other people see the world. And I think that unique perspective, or that way in which my personality has evolved in college, makes me feel makes me feel like all my interactions are better, makes me feel like I'm better equipped for the professional world, and just makes me feel a lot more confident about myself. And that's something that has kept me going through debating, because whenever I do well in debating, it has a good impact on how confident I am with respect to everything in my life. And yeah, it's a self-fulfilling cycle that's pretty nice.
I like that. I like that answer. And I just like how, for the first time ever, I heard an engineer say, what kept me going? Engineering. And I was like, what? That doesn't seem about right. But either way, and that makes sense, right? I have last two questions for you guys. The first one being for anybody else from India, of course. Other countries, shoo away, right? From India. Coming into the WDC next year or years to come, what is your top tip? And I want you to balance it with the idea of how do you really balance academics and debate in one? Because as you said, you're in a competitive industry overall where education is concerned, and you have to balance those two really well. The extracurricular side of competitive debating, high level, and the world of, let's say, writing examinations, really, especially in India. So let's start with IIT Bombay.
So I would say, so the first part of the question about it was one tip that you would have for worlds, right? Like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say the first part of the question is be really hungry, be really ambitious. The goal of worlds always seems really far away from you, because these debaters that break worlds are like glorified a lot, and you'll hear things like, oh, this is XYZ, they're really, really, really good. And I think one of the most important things is break that myth, like break the worship of those debaters when you face them, that you go into a round thinking you can literally beat any single debater. And once you have that attitude enough for a few months, then it helps. Like, obviously you can't beat every single debater, it's difficult at times, but if you go with that attitude, I think it helps. And that's one tip I would say. And with respect to academics, I would honestly say that debating, while it's an activity that needs some amount of regularity, I don't think it consumes your time so much. Like I think that come close to worlds, if you can give like half an hour a day plus a few weekends for debate tournaments, plus like 2 hours spar a week, then you should be really, really, really good to go. And if you do this regularly, then it should be really sorted. So I wouldn't even give advice on how to manage this with acads, because I just think that time wise, it's just exaggerated how much time debating takes. If you manage it well, then it's an activity that actually does not take a lot of time, but just needs regularity and discipline over a long time. That's what my take is.
Understood. So I like the idea of how you said going into worlds, think you can beat any team, and don't glorify or worship some of these debaters you've heard of, because I absolutely agree with that. For example, if you're getting into football and you're going to play against Ronaldo, you can't sit and have an idol of Ronaldo in your room, because when he comes in front of you and he starts dribbling in front of you, you probably will just let him go, thinking you can't do it anyway, why try, right? But if you, I mean, that little bit of arrogance is really good going into these tournaments, as long as you know how to ground yourself again later on when it really matters. Like, win, be humble, while competing, be arrogant or be prideful, whatever you want to call it, because debating is about pride. You want to get it pointed always. You want to put it across like you are the best. That completely makes sense. And Harsith?
So I agree with Mahor's bit about consistency. Like, I think one of the most effective ways to improve in debating, at least, is like Sai and Angad might disagree with me on this, but I feel like it's focusing on specific skills and doing specific spars and like drills and things like that to work on them. And then you go ahead and do competitions once a month or something like that, which is what like seniors from our SOC used to do, and which is how they were able to manage their academics and debating. But apart from that, a couple of things. One, I think most importantly is taking feedback from almost anybody you can find. Every self-taught debater that I've heard, at least from India, has just taken massive amounts of feedback from everybody they've been in. So if you feel like a debater in the room is better than you, if you feel like some room to go first, and they had interesting things to say. You go and ask them about what you think the case is. You ask all of your judges about specific things that you can improve, and then sort of make a note of this, and then consistently keep working on them over time. I think agreeing that there are some mistakes that you make and there's always room for improvement is extremely crucial on this stage, especially when there's so much randomness involved, when your judges might give wrong calls and things like that. But having that attitude does not help you improve in the activity. I think taking feedback from everyone, being humble about the activity, and then learning and going into the year with the mindset and doing it consistently across the year is something that can really improve the careers of a lot of debaters.
Understood. And that makes sense. As it is, I always say, if you lose a debate, it's not you, it's the judges. And Sai and Angad, how about you all?
So the one tip I'll give, or not exactly a tip, but a way to approach any world championship is to find like a consistent set of partners, or if just one partner if it's a BP. I think it's important for you to build that trust over a lot of competitions. It doesn't happen overnight. It can't happen in 3 competitions. It can't happen in a month. It has to happen over like an year. So I think the preparation in terms of trust building, in terms of getting in sync with the other person, starts way before the actual debate drills and debate preparation starts. So that's one thing I would recommend everyone to do. Just find a strong, find a partner who you think you're most comfortable with, and they don't have to be the best debater or the second best debater after you, right? They just have to be someone you gel with really well, because the trust in the debate room matters a lot. So on balancing like academics, I think though surely debating does take up some of your time. I think most debaters, like not just in India, any outside India, they end up debating 5-6 years, even well beyond after graduation, even when they're working. So if you can manage work as well as like debating at the same time, possibly this activity is not as gruesome as people make it sound to be. It is easy to. It's not the easiest to manage, but I wouldn't say that if you're passionate about debating but you also have your heads in a straight line, I think it's easy to go ahead and do that. Because debating on weekends and 5 days working, I think everyone can manage that possibly if you're really passionate about debating. So yeah, I think managing shouldn't be the biggest concern. I think it's more about how much you want this activity to shape your life. I think it does help. The sacrifices, even if you make those, are well worth it, because it changes your personality, changes your outlook, gives you a broader perspective, and obviously gives you a community to rely on. All these are valuable trade-offs that you're ready to make, even if it requires some amount of sacrifice.
Understood. And Sai?
I would just add one thing. I agree with what more or less everyone has said. I would just say it's very important to be sincere in a way that you take every round seriously. Because I think what the biggest change I've noticed in myself over the past 3 years is I get way more I get very relaxed about things, and it's not until the out rounds that we wake up from our slumber. And I think I speak for all of us when I say this. There's a bit of arrogance and overconfidence there, which is good. You should have an ego in the sport. But I think that when you stop treating every round as if it's your last debate round, you stop taking the most from that round. And that's not a good attitude to go in with when you're going to Worlds. And that's just because if you don't take every round seriously, you're going to have regrets when things don't go well. The simple thing to keep in mind is never have regrets and do everything possible in your capacity to not have regrets. Academically, I think these 3 are academically smarter than me. I'll just go with whatever they said.
Understood. So to summarize everybody's points, right? Be ambitious, be hungry. You guys need to, let's say, have this vision to go somewhere. And Harsith then grounds us and says, but always take feedback. Always remember there's somebody better than you, and always. So it's the in debate mode and out debate mode, which I realize, right? One person's talking about what happens inside when you're debating currently, and the moment it's paused, it's an act to per se over there sometimes, right? You're debating, everybody knows. As it is, you're acting as closing government or opening government or for that side or for against that motion, right? So you come into the act, you go give it your all, and then the moment you pause, the director says something, go back, take feedback. And then Angad has spoken about how debating helps you regardless. It changes your personality, it builds your community, and it doesn't have that big of an impact on your academics, as Mahor also echoed, right? Saying that you can manage this, you just need to be disciplined, you just need to have that little ability to manage your time. And Sai agrees with him academically for some reason, which they all smiled about. And he also mentions the fact that you cannot have any regrets. And how not to have regrets? Prepare well, take every round seriously. Those are golden tips from our champion debaters over here. And lastly, again, I always ask the most important question in the end before we part ways. Guys, last time I asked you about songs. This time I ask you, if your debating journey was a movie, a Bollywood movie preferably, which movie would it be and which character are you? And I'm going to give you all a minute or two to decide this, right? I'm going to give a shout out to good movies over here. Dabang, Salman Khan starrer. No, guys, okay. Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge. I don't know about the nights or the days that of clubbing which Harsith and Angad shared together, right? We have a lot of movies in store, guys. Which ones do you all choose? Who do you all represent? What is the story for you all? Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I'm just giving random names now.
I have a movie.
Sure.
I mean, the degree of it is magnified insanely, and I think the scale of achievement is much lower. But the ending arc to Worlds and how it went felt like 1983 to me for myself. So yeah, I think that would be a movie that I would sort of go with. Even like the music tracks and like the vibe of the movie of how it happens, it's pretty insane. That being said, I don't think I have struggled so much. Like, I don't think I've had any insanely dire circumstances going through my debate career. I'm happy to accept and concede that although in like the Indian circuit not having much access has been the only barrier, otherwise I've gotten the access and all of that. But apart from that, like the arc of the story probably feels like that's how my debating career is for me.
Perfect. So 1983, Ranveer Singh, Kapil Dev, the entire trophy coming in India's hands. Yes, that's what it feels like. Absolutely. I agree with you over there. Right. And I really hope that we have our 2011, 1983 moments even more going forward, but not 2023. I'm not recovered from that yet. And Harsith, what about you? Any movie in your
I don't watch a lot of Bollywood, but then there's a Tamil movie that I think was also shot in Hindi. It's called Sala Khadus in Hindi, if I'm pronouncing that right. It's called Iridi Sutre in Tamil. So the reason why I think that summarizes my debate career is because a coach has been monumental for me from school and providing me that edge to do significantly better over the last year in debating. And that movie is all about how one person trusts their coach and how they take that kind of support and they're able to do significantly well in the boxing championship. And I think at least for India in the future, while we might not probably have individual coaches for everyone, something that all of us are thinking about, something that really good debaters from outside are thinking about, something that organizations like Ideal is also supporting, is providing some sort of mentorship for emerging debaters and giving our time back to the entire country and all the circuits. So yeah, I think the movie sort of sums up what debating was for me and what I want it to be for the next year in terms of how I'm giving back to the activity. So yeah.
I'm just glad I asked this question. I just asked it because I'm bored and I wanted a movie recommendation, and I've gotten that considering I've not watched this one. So let's go. And how about Sai?
I thought for the past 3 minutes, but all I could come up with was an anime. I think it captures my journey and my belief system better. It's Naruto. And the philosophy is simple, right? Even when all the odds are stacked against you, you just push through. Forward is the only way to go, and eventually you'll end up where you want to be. So I think never giving up is something that just encapsulates my journey.
And I know the favorite movie Angad has, Mr. India, because he keeps disappearing right now. But regardless of this, so Naruto Uzumaki, that's the one, right? That's the anime you're going with. You believe that's what your journey has been like. That's fantastic. And I'm going to add Angad to the stage. Mr. India, where were you? And
no, just my laptop died on me. But yeah, the one movie I think is probably determines sort of spells out my debate career. and I think I've mentioned this again, like it's Chak De India. It's because the people around you don't trust in you. People around you don't think you can perform on the world stage. There's a common or a misconception that engineers can't debate, especially in the circuit that I operate in. And you have 4 engineers who are sitting here on this call who have all done good in their debating careers. So when people around you are pushing you down, I think the only thing that powers you out of it is your self-belief, and that's what feels like debating to me, Chak De India. So yeah, I'll go with that one. Cliche, but it has to resonate with me a lot.
100%. I love Chak De India. I love 1993. I just want to mention one thing right off the bat. Whoever said engineers can't be debaters, I don't know what they were having, but I want some of that. Because engineers by nature are problem solvers, guys. I don't get it. The kind of theory you all know, the kind of knowledge you all have, I don't get who said that. But the only thing which I would say is time management, which could be a problem because they have so much to study. But as Mahor said, debating does not need that much if you put your time in. So absolutely, guys, I'm really proud of you all, right? Like from the bottom of my heart, regardless of this interview, a heartfelt congratulations on your journey. And I really hope to perhaps be mentored by all one day, just have a conversation going and hopefully get worlds for the country or somebody else getting the world for the country, because that's what matters, right? Thank you so much for this interview and see you all next time. Thank you.